Rugby.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Radio Eersterivier, the leading online radio station of the Cape. My name is Riaan, and this, of course, is from a youth perspective a rather cold Cape Town afternoon, but it's fine. I hope it's the last few days of winter. Mr. Koeberg says, "Hey, hou baie van die winter, maar ek haat die winter, want het is baie koud." I must say that we had quite a exciting, busy weekend. Ek is bly dat mense die All Blacks verloor, die Bok het gewen, so hy het my naweek totaal en al gemaak. But also, I must also say that we're also quite an exciting or quite a busy political week. If we just look at what is in the news regarding South Africa's financial or looming financial crisis. So last week, cabinet ministers basically met at Spear. It's basically a wine farm here in Stellenbosch to discuss ways of trying to basically save money for the country. And here's the thing, the measures they want to implement is not by cutting salaries of politicians or ministers. No, it's basically taxing you more. So Cabinet now wants to increase the VAT by about up to 2%, which will give them a beautiful income when it comes to the fiscus, about 17 billion rand. And all the reason why they want to do it is to keep the 350 rand that they provide to poor South Africans alive. And here's the other thing. The youth leader of the ANC wants to increase it 350 rand to about 480 or 450, and then also he wants to provide another increase for graduates who are unemployed, 4,500 rand. But here's the thing: if we look at a cabinet already sitting to meet to discuss ways of trying to save money, and now you have a youth leader of the ANC saying, "But no, we must pay more money for poor." If government provides policies in place, they can actually provide safety nets for poor people, where the economy is basically better for poor people. I don't think they need to invest so much in social welfare. But that's that thing. But also we have a bloated cabinet, about 30 people, and billions of rands are spent on VIP protection, perks for these individuals, and also for their salaries. So that's the issue that we have here. We also had the death, of course, of the IFP leader, Comrade Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who died at the age of 95 after a long spate of ill health. He died in hospital. So our deepest condolences also to the IFP family and to everyone who actually supported the IFP. There was a few things that was said about him in the week, which I felt was quite not the right time, specifically after he died now. Yeah, he had a difficult past where people are saying he was an agent for white people, he was a spy because he didn't fight against apartheid as the ANC did. But the thing is that guy chose, and it was his option not to fight as the ANC did. So I think we must rather respect him for what he have done for the Zulu people in this case also. So that's my rant about that. We are it's for load shedding. I will speak about it another day. But it's the feel of the ANC mensen dag kwaad maak. But I think, guys, if we look at the issue at hand, the main thing is we have a 2024 elections, and we are seeing what we are suffering now. People go out and vote. I'm not saying don't vote for the ANC. I'm saying vote for party you can trust to bring about change in this country, because that's what we need now. We have a 60% unemployment rate in this country. Majority of young people don't have work, and we still question ourselves as to why we cannot vote the ANC out. The policies don't work. I always say the ANC is perfect when it comes to policy designing. Die mense is kwaai man, hulle kan vir jou kwaai policy design. But the issue with the ANC, they can't implement. That's their failures when it comes to government. They don't know how to implement policies. But that's their thing. They must really work on how they implement their amazing policies, because they really create world-class policies. But the issue is they can't implement. So yeah, today I have a guest in studio. Of course, his name is Mr. Riaan Koeberg. He is the chairperson for the Group for Developers. Sir, how are you doing today?
Very good, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for actually coming. Before I give over to you, I must tell our viewers that if you want to reach out or communicate with us, ask questions, you can do that via our WhatsApp line at 064 536 9095, 064 536 9095. You can also go to our Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Radio Eersterivier, or you can also download our app, which is available at the Apple, Hawaii, and iStores or Android stores, as well as you can go to our website at www.radioeersterrivier.co.za. Mr. Koeberg, can you please give me a brief introduction about yourself as well as the organization which you represent today?
Well, what can I say? I'm a community activist. We're coming from apartheid, being a part of a lot of political parties' backgrounds and fight for what we believe is right. And that actually brought me to this point where I rather wanted to work for the community and not for a political party, because our political system is what's actually bringing so much division and problems within our communities. And I thought that let me take a step back and not become a politician, but actually community worker, because that is actually where people really do need us.
Definitely. And I think you mentioned something now about apartheid. I wasn't born in apartheid. I am still very young. But the thing is, if you look at the way things are going today, one day I was scrolling to Twitter, and someone asked me a question, why did you as colored people went through during apartheid? Because you had a lekker life, you went to schools. But the thing is, our people with dispossess of land. Like my grandmother lived in Kleinvlei, grew up there. But we look at District 6 where people have been removed forcibly from their land, and they are asked, what did we go through as colored people? And you were basically also fighting for people's right to housing. Do you think that the current trend or the current system in place, the policy in place, do you think it's basically working to assist people who can't afford a house?
Well, no. I would say that, and I think that is the biggest problem that we're having in South Africa. And if we can take the Western Cape for an example, we have, for instance, people coming from the Eastern Cape that is also getting houses right now. And you have colored people that is since 1981 on the waiting list, waiting for an opportunity. So, and that's why I'm saying political parties is using the housing system as a tool for people to vote for them. And I think that is where it brings the division amongst the different races. And I think that is the core problem that we need to work on, so that we keep it away from political parties and race bound, because in actual fact, in the Western Cape, we have a huge amount of colored people that is not in houses at this point, or benefit more from housing systems or housing projects.
I must also add what you just mentioned now regarding the racial tension that exists in our country. And a beautiful example, look at yesterday's rugby match between the Springboks and Scotland. If you go to any pub, for those who drink, or any other place where you can watch rugby, you will see black, colored, Indian, white sitting next to each other, not complaining, they're actually supporting each other. Even when I attended college, like I had friends across the board, there was nothing like racism. But the moment you go to a political party, then the thing about the racism starts. So I do know this is off the topic now, but do you think that we can actually get rid of that? And how do you think we can actually get rid of racism in terms of the political landscape itself?
Yes, I think that is something that we need to work on. Firstly, if you see my WhatsApp status before the Springboks play, I said that we as South Africans can actually learn from that, because with the Springboks, they win the former World Cup, and they have done it as a team.
Yeah,
there's no race mentioned. They work as a team, as one, as a South African nation. And that is what we need to do. I think firstly, being political and start classifying people in different races is the first problem. We need a political party or a community organization to stand up so that there can be no division amongst color or race. I made an example the other day when I spoke to community leaders in the informal settlements. I said that, look, for me, I want to live in peace. And I don't want to see somebody in a color, but I want to see somebody as my brother or sister. But I also want, when I go to the Eastern Cape, or I go to KwaZulu-Natal or Limpopo, I also need to feel free as a colored person to walk into a black community, also own land, or apply for a government subsidy or a house without having that fear that people is going to attack me because I don't fit into their culture. I think we need to start at that point.
Definitely. I always must add that it goes down to our older generation, specifically in Parliament currently. We have our politicians, like you just mentioned now. They are using or race baiting to win votes. And I think people must actually start getting more clever in terms of how the political work in this country. So yeah. Can you explain how the housing list or the housing process basically works for someone to apply for a house?
Well, first you need to go to the rent office in your community that is close to you. In this case, you can also go to Pero, to the housing department there, or you can go to Wales Street.
In Cape Town.
Then you need to go and register yourself on the government housing list, on the database. And once you're on that database now, once there's a project in your community, they will then send you a message, or they will tell you that you are part of the that specific project.
So who can qualify? Must you be of a certain age, a certain color, must you speak a certain language, or must you live in a specific area where the project might start to actually qualify for that house? Or how does it work?
Well, if you're 18 years and older, you have to be a South African citizen. I don't think that color or race will come in anywhere. You're supposed to benefit from a project that happens within your community, but these days they call it integration process, where they bring people from different areas to different areas, and that is one of the biggest problems that they have created right now, because you will find that more people will come into your community and benefit from a housing project instead of yourself. When we go to race, the other problem that I would like to address is the fact that you will go to certain black communities where only black people will benefit from that housing project, but you will never see colored people coming into that community. That is also something that we're working on and that we would like to fix, because if you take Eersterivier, for argument's sake, it's 4 wards that makes one area or what's one sub-council. So you have two wards in Umvoleni and 2 wards in Eersterivier. But Umvoleni is also benefiting out of housing projects in Eersterivier, but Eersterivier does not benefit from housing projects in Umvoleni. I think that is something that we need to fix.
It's quite unfair as well to think about that. So currently on the waiting list is about 600,000 people who are waiting for a house. In your view, how do we fix that issue? There's a lot of houses, a lot of names. How do we fix that problem?
Firstly, like I said, if we can start using housing projects as a tool for people to get houses, because on most of my videos, whenever I go out to communities, I will mention this, that political parties will first see to their people or their voters before they actually go to the waiting list that is there. They have created the waiting list, and they said that the first criteria is that once they build, they will see to the people that is the highest or the longest on the waiting list. But that does not happen. Because government is telling us even today that they're still building for people that is on the waiting list for 1999. And yet we see young people that is registered in 2021, 2020, 2019, that's already in houses. So what is happening to our older generation of people? Because they are the ones sitting in backyards, they are the ones sitting in shacks, and we're not looking after them. And if we say as government, we first want to give the elderly and the disabled the opportunity to benefit from a house or from the government subsidies, that is not happening currently. And in most cases, we find that is where the fraud comes in, because the youngsters can pay that 3,500 rand to get into a house sooner than the older people that is only living on a government grant.
Well, it's quite sad if you think about it. I also know of a couple quite young, and they got a house where people younger. I read about a news story whilst I was researching this. Young, quite an old lady, I think 40 years old, and she still sits in the backyard of her mother, where all the people opposite her that she says is in a house already. And that's quite unfair if you look at how things are going here. So what factors do you think are contributing towards the high number of people on the waiting list currently?
Like I said, if government can really focus on the list itself, then it will work. If I can make an example, in Mitchell's Plain, you have about more than 20,000 people that is on the waiting list. You have 2 big projects that was stopped 12 years ago. The Beacon Valley and the Farm Montrose Park project was stopped. And there you can at least accommodate nothing less than 2,000 people to benefit out of a house. Now, what the mayor is doing, he goes to smaller areas or smaller piece of land where he can build even less than 100 houses. And that is only to give houses as soon or right before elections. And that we think it's a problem. So if we can move away from using it as a political bait instead of really providing for the people, then I think we will make the difference that we want. And the other factor is that we have stopped a few projects, developments, where government will sell more land or make more land available to private developers. And most of them, unfortunately, is white owned companies. And then they sell that properties for 2.5 million because most of the prime land goes to these people. So we have a problem with it because whenever we come and we demonstrate our anger because of always asking for land or availability for land to be available for projects, then there's never land available. So I think that is a huge problem.
On the issue of the mayor, Gordon Lewis, for example, I always say I have no respect for the guy because he actually does nothing for our community in terms of development. I met with city representatives last week in my capacity as MPO founder myself, and I asked him, how can you support us, MPO, because we want to develop a program for young people. Now, one of the guys who spoke to told me, you know what, I have my own opinion and views about your MPOs and what you do. Now, the thing is, like, I don't care what your views are about MPOs. The thing is, you don't give anything for our people, our communities. So assist me. I don't want your money, but me to give you assistance to provide the support we can for our communities. And there's nothing. And the thing that I always see that they always try to play the blame game, but you don't want to do this or you don't want to do that. But we don't have support from government to provide the service that we needed. I saw you were quite busy last week in Eersterivier, and you got sprayed with, what do you call it, pepper spray, if I'm correct. What happened there?
And rubber bullets. Yes.
Because you protested for the right things.
Exactly.
It's quite sad for government to attack their own people. And the thing is, like, even Eersterivier, it's our community also. But we don't benefit, like you just said, from these types of things. And the moment you question this, you're then called racist, you're being called names or that. And it's quite unfair also. And I think the community of Eersterivier really stand up for our own town and for what we believe in. And stop just allowing people to walk over us and say nothing about these types of things in the first place. If you can propose any significant changes to the current legislation or rules, what do you think will that be from your side?
To start, we have a protest on this coming Thursday, 14th of September. And with all the problems, look, we can start from all the corruption that is in the housing system. You can speak about all the tender fraud and all of those things. Then it comes to who gets a house, who don't get a house, who got 2 houses or 3 houses from the system. So what we're saying is that government, if we for argument take Santaco, Santaco is running the transport system when it comes to the community, and they have a delegation that is sitting within the government structures. So any discussion regarding transport start with them from day one, so that they know what is happening. We can negotiate, so that there's no issues of fighting each other once something is being implemented. Now, because there's so much problems within the housing system, we are approaching exactly the same thing. So we want to tell government that you have so much problems within your system. Why don't you rather have a delegation from the community also serving within the government structure, so that you have both. You have the government and the community. we are the ones working on the ground. We know what is working. We know what is not working. So we have been taking these issues on numerous occasions to the highest departments, try to discuss it, but nobody want to listen to us because they just want to enforce policies and whatever they want on us. But they don't come and actually ask what can work and what cannot work, so that we can then work together as a community and as government and have a proper country.
I think the main issue is that politicians are scared the moment you give power to community members who will see that they can do things on their own. You don't need someone like a Zella or Jacob Zuma to say, but you will go left now, because we know what's right. Like you just mentioned now, as MPOs, as community organizations, we are aware of the situation happening in our community. We know how to address it. But I think when you speak about those types of things, it's almost like you be attacking them. You aren't attacking, we want to help them and aid them in what is actually needed in the community itself. You spoke about corruption and tender fraud now. Can you elaborate more about that within the housing sectors?
Well, I'm not even going to go far. We have, we had Malusi Boy. He was in charge of the human settlement, you see. And there was a lot of tender fraud. I mean, currently, right now, as things stand within the province, there's so much housing projects that is being stopped because of tender fraud. And then they have so-called tender mafias and all of these things, you know. So I would say that people are frustrated because one thing that I always fight with the mayor with when we see each other is the fact that why must Power Constructions or all these other big white companies always get the biggest tenders? You can go anywhere in the province, you will only see them. So the tender system is supposed to be based in a way where if you get a tender now, somebody else will get the next one. You understand? But in this case, it's always white companies that is getting these tenders. So we as construction companies that also have a same GB level as them, we need to get frustrated because you apply on the very same policies and principles that they have implemented as government. They don't look at it. You see, so they're only doing it their way. And that becomes a frustrating factor. And I think that is where most people from the communities get angry, and then they enforce also things from their side. So that does not make them wrong. You understand? It's just that government is they arrogant and they don't want to listen to nobody than just themselves. So in this case, we have the DA, and then in other cases, you have the ANC. So I think that if people will really vote properly and try and get these two political parties not to stand, because now they're arrogant because they are always in charge. So policies they will implement for themselves because they know it benefits them. But if we can change things by 2024 elections, I think that maybe we can have a better working relationship and change a lot of different things so that the community can interact with government.
Definitely. On the issue of the ANC and DA, I must say, you mentioned now about they know that they have a big political power base within the DA in the Western Cape and the ANC in other 8 provinces. And the issue is people never exceed determination to say, but we want to vote for you. People don't do that because people trust the DA to deliver, even though they don't. They say that they're a caring government, but they aren't caring at all, because if you see what's happening here, they aren't caring at all. The same with the ANC. And the main issue is that people still trust them to the core, because Africans don't trust new political parties. They trust the old because they are too loyal to the blue and the yellow-green color. They're not loyal to what they actually need within their community itself. On the issue of informal settlements and out-of-province individuals that you spoke of currently, how do you think we should balance the needs of individuals coming or living within informal settlements, as well as those from out-of-province, and those who are born in the Western Cape? So what do you think? How do we balance that? Out-of-province, informal settlements, and then born within the Western Cape?
I think it should be a really easy process. For any province, whenever there's a budget being allocated, you need to first know how many people stays within the province so that you know how big the demand is for certain things. Yes, we need to make room for people coming into the provinces and so on. And I think government made a mistake because at first nobody ever thought of keeping an eye of who's actually coming in and the big demand. So I think that we need to work on some sort of a percentage of people coming into the province so that if we need to build houses, we can only build on this percentage for outside people to come in, because we have a problem in the Western Cape. And the problem is that most people from other provinces get a chance before you to get a house. Now, if you go back to his province, he have a house there as well. You understand? And that is the biggest problem, because now people in the Western Cape that is born here, that can't go anywhere, does not have a house. So you can't call this your place of birth if you don't even have space here for yourself, or you don't have anything that you can call home.
Yeah.
And that is the unfortunate part, because political parties is using the informal settlement people to vote for them, so they will provide for them first. And I think that is the biggest problem that we have.
The apartheid government spatial planning, where colors stay here, whites stay, blacks stay side, still plays a massive role, specifically in the Western Cape, in the Cape Town. What do you propose can we do to actually totally eradicate that spatial planning that was existing from 1948?
I think that is something very bad in any country, is where you start dividing people. If you go in most overseas countries, you will not see that at all. The only thing that you will see is that there is maybe a middle class people that they have a certain type of way how they're living. You have maybe the poor people living in a certain way. That's the only difference. But color and race should not be used at all in this case. And for me, I mean, in apartheid, we all lived all together. There was no, you live here and you live there. We have now the New South Africa, where they say, okay, you stay in Kailicha, you stay in Cooks, and you stay in Mitchell's Plain. I think it's totally wrong. I think if we can balance things out and say that, okay, now anybody can stay anywhere. But because we have all of these problems that we have currently in the Western Cape, it is very difficult to do that. So it will take a long time for us to get to that point where we can actually say, let's have the integration all over and not just in certain places, you know. So, yeah, for me, it will make me happy if we all can stay amongst each other and not being classified as certain races. But like I'm saying, is that politics plays a very big role when it comes to that, because people in the informal settlement will always have that need of having a house. And you will see that for every 5 years, they will still vote for the same parties, because the same parties will come with the very same things that they say and promises that they make to the people. So, yeah, it's a very big problem.
One small issue of informal settlements. So we have informal settlements popping up every single way. And I saw a table the other day where those people will occupy land illegally on Christmas and then public holidays, because then the police are almost nowhere to be found. What's your view on, or how can we then formalize already structured for informal settlements, first of all, but how do we then also put policies in place to actually curb more of these settlements popping up across the country?
I think we need to start at the point that there's no job creation in our country. And most people are not working at all. And because our economic is so bad and low, and there's only a certain few individuals that is rich and can live, a good life. That is where the problem starts, because starting to pay rent these days will start at least 3,500 rand a month. So for somebody that is not working, firstly, how are you going to have a space of your own? Having all these people coming from the Eastern Cape is your second problem, because how do you control it? Where does this people go to? Because he does not have a job. Where is he going to stay? Either in the backyards, or you need to go find him somewhere. And does have become a trend now where people live in informal settlements because now they have their own space. and they can live in their own place where they don't have to pay rent to nobody. And, it's also sad because if you could see what happens, especially within the area of Eersterivier, of people when they don't have money to pay their rental, people are brutal. You either get beaten, they bring gangsters, or they put you and your kids on the street with your furniture where you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So it's instead of having that situation, or rather go grab a piece of land knowing that you don't have to pay any rental. And I think here government again is in the fire line because people are on the waiting list for 20, 30 years. So if government can at least have a time period where they say, if you're on the waiting list, at least within the first 10 years of that period, we will be able to build a house for you. But we don't do that. And that is why we have stopped the eviction in Cape Town as well of the street people, because even if you stay in a cardboard house, it's your home.
Yeah.
At least when you get sick during the day, or you know you're going home at night after going to look for food, you know that you have a place. But they don't see it that way.
It's quite sad on the issue of homeless people, how specifically Cape Town treats their homeless people. If you look at COVID, there was no homeless people that existed because the government made a way for them to have a house, to have a place to sleep. And you question, why is there homeless people today? Do you think that we need to also have programs in place, except shelters? Because many people don't want to stay in shelters because what happens there. What is your view, or what is your opinion, or what do you think can we do to actually provide better conditions and better means of housing for homeless people? How do we address that specific issue?
Well, if you look at shelters, number one, government does not own shelters. Government need to provide money or make money available to buy buildings so that they convert it into shelters. That's number one. So how do you spend 8 million rand on buying a building to convert it into a shelter where people book in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock in the morning you need to be out? So you have no home. So rather take that money, make land available, take that 8 million rand and see how many people is on the street. And then you rather provide them with a proper housing system, knowing that we already now see to you. So we don't want people on the streets anymore because we have now already now concluded that problem or see to that problem. But government doesn't do that. You see? So they just want to create. And I think from my personal view, it's another political stunt because the more people you have in the shelters, the more people you can control to vote for you. So I think it's a political stunt and it must not be used for political reasons, knowing that we have such a big problem in our country when it comes to housing. And let me just emphasize, a house is the last dignity that we have left as a South African human being, that we can say this is ours.
Yeah.
Our country is making so much money from our minerals and everything else that we're selling.
But where's the money going?
That's the problem. That is the problem. So, and that is why I want people to make the right choices when it comes to voting, because those people are the ones that is actually putting us under privilege, because they are stealing the money and they're using the money for their own benefits. And unfortunately, in this case, it's your presidents, it's your ministers, it's your premiers, it's your mayors.
Councillors.
Those are the ones that is controlling the budgets and the money. So if they don't spend it on the things that really is necessary, we have a problem.
You've spoken a lot about elections, and you've basically mentioned a DA and ANC. Now, what do you think, in your view? I don't want to put you in a spot now, but is there a reliable alternative compared to those two political parties?
Let me just say that yes, there might be, but the problem that I have with every political party at this stage is the fact that nobody is being seen in the actual communities to fight the very same things that we are having a problem with in this country. So for me, for any president or any party leader that is going to become a president, how will he know how to address these problems once he becomes a president if he have never been on the ground knowing what is the actual problem? What is the solutions to the problem? How does the problems occur? You know, those sort of things. So I think that if you really should look at political leaders or people that will really make a difference one day in government, is the actual community leaders that is working on the ground. They are the ones that can make the difference because they know how to deal with a certain situation. But you can't sit up there and have a degree in business, but you know how to work with money, but you don't know how to work with people. And that is a problem for me. So I think that all these political parties that is there have only focused on getting into parliament, you know, have their say, work with budgets, work with big money, but nobody actually works on the ground where the actual problems is.
Definitely. And to add into that, in 2021, two political parties stood out for me, which I believe could have stood up for colored people. We have the Good Party, the PA, and also now the Triple C or the NCC. They changed the name recently. But the main issue, with the exception of the Triple C now, because they're still basically fighting for colored people, is we have a Patriotic Alliance and the Good Party. So we have Patriotic now working with the ANC and coherently supporting the ANC in everything they do. We have the Patriotic Alliance, who basically the Deputy President, Kunene, he turned his back and said, but no, we're not a colored political party. We never were. So the issue is the PA got into power because of the colored vote. Good came into power because of colored vote. And everything they do, they always turn their backs around for colored people. So you said now that people must start standing up and community members must start putting up their role there. But also if you look at the IEC, it's quite difficult for independent people to go there because you need, I think, 1,500 rand or 15,000 rand to register for a party. You need about 1,000 signatures. So it's quite difficult for any person actually not part of a party to become part of politics because it's expensive and also you need a lot of votes and supports to get there. So I really think that it's really time people must really be open-minded when it comes to politics, especially these days around. I'm going to take a quick ad break and we'll come back and discuss the last few questions I have for you, sir.
Okay,
Eersterivier. Our station, our talent, our people.
Tidang Rugby.
Eersterivier. Our station, our talent, our people.
Tidang Rugby.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for still staying with us in Radio Eersterivier. My name is Riaan. Fritz is, of course, from youth perspective. We're speaking to Mr. Riaan Koeberg from the Group for Developers on the housing crisis in Cape Town. So if you want to get hold of us, ask us questions, you can do so via WhatsApp line at 064 536 9095, 064 536 9095. You can also go to our Facebook, YouTube, and our TikTok at Radio Eersterivier. You can also download our free app from the Android App Store as well as the Y stores. Also go to our website at www.radioeerstervier.co.za. Mr. Koeberg, before the break we spoke about the issue around illegal occupation of housing, but also around homeless people. During COVID-19, a group of people occupied a railway and built houses on the rails. So now they asked government, they want housing. Government said, okay, we're going to take you to a few communities. They came to Eersterivier first, but I think opposite the road there in Eersterivier side, they came that side, as well as to Makassar. All two communities said, we don't want them here. And then the issue around racism came up again. What is your view about that? Because we have a community living there on the farm that don't have housing, live without electricity. And government never came to us or them asked, but how can we assist you to give you electricity? But now all of a sudden when that happens, now they want to do that.
I think firstly we need to look at how certain ward councillors is operating. When you become a ward councillor, you obviously, most of them are promising people houses. And because now I know that a road or a train line will be built, or in this case that they were on the train line for the train not to be used. So in actual fact, it forced government now to make you a provision to get houses as soon as possible. And that is a very big problem because you will find that people that is 1 year on the waiting list among those people have to now be relocated into a house because of they need a train line, because they need the trains to operate. And this is what people do. So they need to, they speak to certain people that is within government, and then they will tell them, go there and go there, because soon they're going to start doing this type of infrastructure there. So if you occupy there, you will get sooner a house than to wait so long on the waiting list. You understand? So it is all, like I say, it is all political games. So you will get people that charge people money as well, that they will help you to get a house. You maybe pay 50 rand or 100, even sometimes 250 rand. And then you see that you can't provide houses, or you can't help people to get a house, then through the normal waiting list system. And then they will start now telling people, do this and do that. You understand? It's always on the charge of somebody that is telling them to do it, so that they know that their people will get sorted out soon.
I must also add on the issue of ward councils making promises. Now, I studied public management, and the first thing they taught us in class was a councillor must never make promises to any person because they don't have the capacity to do so. In our ward, our budget for the year is basically R1 million, so you can do basically nothing with R1 million. So I must also emphasize that community members don't listen to when a councillor tells you, I will give you a job, because he can't. It's illegal for him to make a promise, I'll give you a job, because he can't. A minister can, but a councillor can't. They can't provide you with a house. They can't promise you a house, so please be vigilant. And don't pay people onder die tafeltjie, R100 of R1,500, whatever for is. Rather wait and allow people who actually waited for more than 40 years in a housing list to get a house, because fair must be fair. So, what's your view? We did speak about this earlier, but what's your view about illegal occupation? And does G4D support illegal occupation of properties?
I will not say that we supporting it, but if you look at what I said previously, is that sometimes you're pressurized. And for 9 months, we have been trying to engaging with government on numerous of issues regarding government housing. And up until today, we have never ever had any good responses or any feedback or any form of relationship to even work with government in changing things. You understand? And they know that their systems is not working. They know that their planning is not working. They know what they're doing is not right because it's not constitutional. So it's a very big problem, because now I'm being thrown out of a house. I lost my job. I need to look after and provide for my family. My kids need to go to school. What do I do? Family don't want me. People don't want you to put up places at the back of the yard, and you also become now a asset now, and a backyard dweller as well. So those are the things that really drive people to these kind of things. So I would suggest that there is so many open space. Rather than, if you know that there is projects coming up, I would rather be as a government, I will say, okay, let us accommodate so many people here. We will give you water and sanitation so that you can be off the street, but we will sign a contract or make an agreement that we will build there. Once there's been built there, we will need this land back, for this purpose. Because if you give somebody at least a year to get back onto his feet, to say, okay, you can stay here for 1 year, rent-free, you have water, you have sanitation. In 1 year, you must at least be able to come up with some form of a job or something, so that we can see that you do progress. You can't just come here and come sit and not do anything. Also, that will also give people at least that leverage or the stability to just start over and just carry on. So I think that government can really make a very big difference only when they speak to people and put these options on the table, knowing that that is not my home. I'm only there for a certain period of time to uplift myself. And then have people from the community, enable organizations to say, okay, you will watch over this. You will watch this guy is coming in here on the 1st of January. By the end of December, he must be able to at least provide for his family, or maybe say that, look, I can now rent a place for us to stay. It is government's responsibility to look after its citizens, and it's their duty. Because remember, they are the ones controlling the taxpayers' money and all other monies that is being paid to government institutions. If we take for argument our late president or previous president, Jacob Zuma, how many monies is not gone out of our government system? And yet, nobody is prosecuted. So if we can, as government, let this thing slide, we must be able to then stand up and say, okay, now we will make the effort now in doing X, Y, and Z. So that money could have come in very handy in building homes or provide for the South African citizens. It's their responsibility.
It definitely could have. I think Zuma, during his years, money gone was about more than R1 trillion. It was basically gone, stolen. And he's still a free man. Like if you steal bread, a hungry person, you will go to jail for stealing bread, but a guy stealing trillions of rands of poor, vulnerable people, and he looks scot-free. And I think people still support him. And it was really questionable why people can support a criminal like that guy. I want to add on this quickly. I've heard of people that applied for a house, their name is written on or next to a house, and then they go next day, but then antisari blame is wat Uncle Johan gaan kry. So what happens there, and how do we then also make that thing right? It was wrong.
Yeah, that is a very big problem, and we have tried to engage with government on that as well. I also know of people that have their earth number corresponds with the person that is staying in the house. Sometimes you get people going to the housing department and they will say that, but you were allocated a house in 2021 already. But this person does not even know that they have a house. Going there, there's people staying there. That people are paying rent to somebody. So the people in charge of these departments, even sometimes the people doing the screening, they know who they're putting in there. So in most cases, we know that there's people that spoke out that says that, no, this person have helped me to get into this house and I'm paying rent to them. So how do you get that right, knowing that somebody else is supposed to get that house? And that is all the loopholes, and that is all the shortcomings in the system that we're trying to explain to the government. Let us help you fix these things so that none of these things will occur. Because there is, in some cases, you get somebody got a house in Delft, and then they also have a house in West Bank or in Delft or somewhere there. How does the system not pick these things up? And that is what we're trying to show government, that your system is not working. We want to help. We want to assist you because we know where the loopholes is. And if you keep on having those loopholes in the system, and that is where you give criminals now the chance to do corruption.
You mentioned government, but you speak about local, provincial, national. Which sphere of government?
Look, if you look in the current state of South Africa, you have that all over in the country. It's just that in some provinces you don't have waiting lists. It's just in the Western Cape. In other provinces where you don't even have a waiting list, is even worse, because people there will eat the tender money, and people you don't even know when you do get a house or when you will get a house. Or in the Western Cape, at least, we have the waiting list where people know that I'm registered in that year. So if you build the houses now for this year, why am I not in there? So for other provinces, it's even worse. So yes, at least the system give us that indication in the Western Cape as to when they're building for these type of people on the waiting list, or those years that you will be able to get onto a housing project.
About 2 weeks ago, a massive fire broke out in Johannesburg. And that building was basically occupied illegally by government sources. And about 70 people died because of the fire. Majority of them were foreigners. So what's your view on foreigners also occupying hijacking property? Because we also have one in Cape Town that I saw on Twitter also the other day. What's your view on also foreigners also getting houses and also occupying hijacked buildings like what happened in Johannesburg?
Johannesburg, yes, is a big problem for some time. Especially there was a lot of hijack buildings, and you will know that. I know Mr. Kunene himself, as a MMC, he also went after a lot of these buildings. So now the question is that if government is sitting with so much empty buildings, why is our people still in the streets? That is a question, because government is supposed to have regulators controlling these buildings, knowing what is going to happen, knowing who's going in and out. Like in Cape Town, you will see there's always securities all over. You can't even enter into any small place. So I think it depends on it is dependent on your municipality, if you do have your hand on it. But remember, like I'm saying, you still have a lot of criminal elements within your municipalities. You know, he can maybe interfere into the building, he can charge people, get people into the building. But my view on foreigners getting houses in South Africa, it's not an option. Not at this stage. I think we still have a lot to be done as a country to first stabilize the South African citizens. You know, there was speculation that most of these foreign nationals get subsidies or allowances from the UN, but that money was also intercepted by the ANC. So sometimes they allow these people to do these things because they know that they are the ones that is claiming the money for these foreign nationals, and that is a huge problem. You know, it's something to be discussed, because if you also speak to the foreign nationals, you will hear a lot of stories and a lot of things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So I just think that if the UN will or does give foreign nationals a allowance, it make it better for them now to legally then go rent or buy a place, you understand, without hijacking buildings that could be used for South African citizens to occupy. But instead, we don't do that.
Do you think that MPOs are to blame for what's happening there? Because the first thing the government did, apart from blaming apartheid, was blaming MPOs for the illegal occupation of these properties, but also saying that everything to blame, the deaths, whatever, is on the hands of specifically the Helen Suzman Foundation. Do you think that they are to blame for what is happening or what happened in Johannesburg?
The only reason if they can blame any organization is if that specific organization owns the building or have a contract with government in renting the building. That is the only way. I don't see any other way. So at this stage, I don't know who's the owner of the building, whether it still belongs to government or any specific organization. But whoever owns the building is supposed to keep his hand on the building, because, you know, such buildings bring in a lot of revenue.
It does.
So if you don't keep your hands on buildings like this, I mean, then who owns it? So at this stage, I can't really say who is to be blamed or who's not to be blamed, and who's in charge and who's not in charge. So I think we first have to look at who's the owner of the actual building.
Housing is basically a constitutional right that people must have. Don't you think that the South African Human Rights Commission should come in here and also assist you with what your organization is currently busy with?
Yes, it is your constitutional right, along with water and sanitation. The Human Rights Commission, again, politically, it is actually delegates coming or that is there from the ANC. So if you look again that if I should vote for the DA or any other political party, will these people really do that justice to us? That's the question. You know, we have been calling in a lot of people, and as you can see, we are still fighting. So, and for any Human Rights Commission seeing what is going on, it's their duty to come out and say, guys, we are here. Because most of us does not even know where to go to, who to ask for help, because everybody just tell you, no, you must go speak to that person, or no, you must go to that person, you know. So in actual fact, after going around the peninsula, you will actually find out that I need to do this thing on my own. And for me to do that, I will need to go back now to the community, tell them this is what's happening. So open your eyes, let us stand together, and we only focus on what we actually want to achieve. And that is where G4 is standing right now. We have said that there is so many corruption, there's so many underhand dealings, there's so many problems within the government system. It is time now for us to take control of the situation. Because if we're going to leave this thing to carry on like this, it's going to become more and more toxic. It will bring a lot of racial tension. And one of these days, we will have a racial war. And that is what we don't want. So before we're going to go there, let's rather step in and take the control. And I am very happy to say that we have been through a lot of communities within the Western Cape, whether it's black, colored, white, Indian, and people are really coming to stand with us so that we can cross that racial barrier and not have that amongst us, because you will, like I mentioned earlier, is that the biggest problem is where you have the ANC sorting out black people that vote for the ANC. You will have the DA people sorting out certain colored people and white people because they vote for them. So we want to stop that, because I just feel that if you give one person a bread, then you give the other as well that is in the same condition as that person, so that we know that when you heal the one person, you must heal the other as well. Definitely. Because if my child go to school and he have kids in his class coming from black communities, I can't just go to a colored community and fix the problems there.
Yeah.
But on the end of the day, I don't fix the other problems. My child will still grow up with exactly the same problem. You understand? So we need to address the core problem as it is. So we need to call a spade a spade. If it's a problem, it's a problem. And if we have to tell black communities that if you benefit alone from what the ANC is giving you, it's a problem, then it's a problem. You understand? So we need to see who's the person next in line that needs to be sorted out. And we need to stick to that. And I think if we stick to that, we will not have a problem, because I will know that I'm third in line, so I will wait for my third turn to come. And if it comes without no corruption or problems or anybody being chipped in front of me, I think we should have a better understanding, and there should not be any problems.
Definitely. So when houses are built, specifically now these days, when there's development, look at yesterday the new development there. No services are built in the communities. No clinics, schools, hospitals. And we already seen that Kleinvlei clinic is already overburdened because of all communities coming to us. Kleinvlei police can't do their work properly because, okay, alles in the past is nergens te vind, but okay, they're also not there. What is your view on government just building, propping houses, but not delivering when it comes to service delivery?
Yeah, it is a huge problem. And I think that is why we as community want to also have that platform within government when it comes to these things. Because government is supposed to know by now, if you build 5,000 houses, then you must multiply that by 3 or 4 in population. Because you will have a father, a mother, a child, or maybe sometimes 2. So it's 4 people that you're catering in one house. So you're looking at 20,000 people. So now you should know that you must have at least a school in the immediate vicinity. You must look at a clinic. You must now look at extending your police stations. Like in Mitchell's Plain, you have 2 big police stations that is catering for the whole of Mitchell's Plain. So you need to be advanced. And I think the biggest problem that we have is that you have ministers and mayors that only have a 5-year lifespan when it comes to power. So if I do planning now for the next 5 years, it means that I might not be there. It might be somebody else. And when that person comes, he's not going to follow up on what you have done. Yeah. He will come in and implement his own things because he is doing it for his own benefit. You understand? And I think that's the problem. So maybe if we should have a policy on that where we say that whatever research was done here, knowing that we have built so many houses that nobody can change that. You just need to see through to that, because it is a must and something that we have to do and implement without nobody coming to chop and change what is supposed to be done.
Okay, so how do individuals or community members get involved or support the work that you are doing?
If they want to join G4, look, there is two ways of doing it. Firstly, you can become an actual G4 member. There's no registration fees, nothing. You just tell us that you want to get involved. If you want to become a community coordinator or area leader, we are happy to put you on that platform. But you also have, if you have an organization and say that G4, look, we want to support you in what you're doing, we can sign a form of agreement to show that whatever you do, we will support you. And whatever we do, we can call on your support. So we are happy to do it in that way. I know sometimes people also focus on the task at hand or what their organization is standing for. And sometimes, it takes a lot of time and effort and money out of you that you don't want to still belong to too much associations or organizations. So that is the two ways that you can actually work with G4, and our door is open for anybody.
What support do you provide to members of a community? Or how do we also make use of your services which you provide?
On this stage, we are more on housing. We are more on service delivery. We are busy extending now our services because we are busy in the process of registering a union so that we can actually fight for people's rights irrespective, whether it's a house, whether it's at work, whatever problem you have, because we have realized that there is more people who have no lawyers when there's a problem that occurs. There is nothing, there's no support base. People are sometimes losing their jobs for no reason, and there's no representatives where these people can go to actually support them. So I think we will contribute a lot to the community and to our people if we can assist them in fighting with them to achieve certain goals. So and that is why we are bringing the union on board, so that we can help people and assist them in any industry.
The final question to you, sir. What's your contact number, contact details, social media platforms that people can also follow and watch what you're doing?
Yeah, we are on TikTok, we are on Facebook. Yes, I do have a cell phone, and we also have our email services as well. So we can provide it to you, and then you can advertise it if you wish. We are more than willing to give you that.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. Thank you for informing. Thank you for educating our community members on these very important issues. And I do hope that what you're doing will be seen. Government will provide open door platform for you to actually discuss issues that our community are facing and really be open to getting advice from members of the community. That's really my hope. So once more, thank you for coming, and be safe, take care, and hope you will have a safe travel home as well.
It was really a pleasure. I'm looking forward to having a relationship with you guys so that we can support you as well.
Definitely.
But it was awesome.
Thank you so much. So all my viewers, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Riaan Fritz Foundation from Youth Perspective here today. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, you be safe, take care. God bless you all. Bye-bye.